So my name is Ibrahim Mahama. I'm a visual artist from Ghana. I live and work in Tamale. Basically, I am interested in somehow investigating different forms of aesthetics through history. So I've worked with various materials in the last 10 years that somehow come back into building new systems that I hope that eventually would transform art itself and somehow make it a bit more open to the community and societies around where I live. Well, my job is that I'm an artist. Yeah, I don't understand what it means necessarily to be an artist in this context, but all I know is that I am trying to take a different sense of responsibility for things within the art field, and in that case, it's allowing me, for instance, to go into spaces, to be able to enact actions that ordinarily maybe an artist would think, oh, this is not my job or duty, because a lot of art ends up being very symbolic, and I somehow want to be able to make art that somehow transcends the boundaries of those symbolisms into actual realities. Well, when we make art, I believe that the work that we make, always there's supposed to be some kind of longevity to it. So I'm very much interested in that. I want the work not just to be able to survive time itself, but I want it to be able to transcend time and to be able to travel back into time. Because that's why we have the vinyls within this space, and we have the objects which are coming from these old buildings from the last 7 decades, versus the 2 videos which are presented in this exhibition also goes back into the history of architecture, particularly in relation to the relationship between Eastern Europe and then, let's say, West Africa. Buildings and spaces that were built within that same era that were never used, that through art and political action, we can be able to bring them back to life and, for instance, be able to present the context of some of these objects within these spaces. Yeah, so I guess what we are doing, in a way, we're almost acting as if we're time travelers, in a way. We don't have a moment in time. We can be anywhere in time, and art is the medium, is the vessel that allows us to be able to go anywhere within the history of time. Yeah. Okay. I guess traveling, there are a lot of benefits within it and gains, in a way that it somehow helps to transform your worldview. For me, that has been very important. It's been one of the most important things within my work, because each time that you travel, you realize more and more the conditions, the inherent conditions within the world. And it also reminds you of how much we are all so interconnected and how much more work that we need to do in order to be able to resolve some of these problems that we have in the world. Of course, sometimes when you're home or you're in places and you have conversations with people and realize that they have certain conservative views about life and about like the world and society, you mostly don't turn to blame them so much, because I always feel like they are somehow limited within the scope of the geographical boundaries that they find themselves in. But being an artist and being able to access different parts of the world through art and through culture is very different, rather than if I was a businessman who was traveling around the world, going to the Middle East or America or Europe to do business. You're not as sensitive because you're only going as a medium of extraction. Whereas as cultural practitioners, we are more or less like people who are trying to understand. We are points of transitions within these. So it certainly allows you to be able to absorb a lot more than what someone would do ordinarily. With regards to doing things for the Ghanaian population, I guess my entire work has been based on that. Because I built 3 institutions, still reviving and building spaces, looking into ecosystems and all that. So I guess that my entire life's work has somehow been centered in this idea of being at home and somehow contributing towards the shift in narrative in terms of artistic practice and discourse. So with regards to the idea of charity, I think that my practice in itself is a sacrifice and it's a charity work. But I don't also like to think of it as a charity project. I like to think of it as a project that somehow has allowed me to rethink about the responsibilities that comes with being an artist and also being a person who lives in a community. Well, being an artist is being an artist, but I guess I don't necessarily think of myself just as an artist, but as a cultural practitioner and contributor to cultural discourse in a way. So I like to think of myself more than just an artist. And in the work that I do, I like to influence people beyond the art field. And I would like to produce an audience that are not just inclined with art, but are inclined with life itself. Our lives in themselves are sacrifices. To be alive is a sacrifice. Yeah, you could decide to end it today. Yeah, but I think I was talking about these acts of responsibility within the practice. That is one thing that is very important. Those acts of responsibility, the sacrifices are embedded within it. Like for instance, deciding to choose to live in Ghana, deciding to do the kind of work that I do. All those things are sacrifices, but I don't like to think that they are just ordinary sacrifices. They are things that I think that are fundamental to practice or work within a given context. So for me, it's just ordinary. Well, my family, interestingly enough, it's not one of those cases where people would say, oh, I had to struggle. No. My family was very supportive of me being an artist, in experimenting, using the house, the compound to do whatever I wanted to do, keeping objects there. Till now, when you go to my house, you realize that there are a lot of old works that I have in our living room and all that. My family has always contained that because they didn't understand what I was doing as an artist, but they had room to allow me to explore. And for me, that was the gift that I had. So now, of course, they see that there are results coming out from it and they're a lot more excited. But for me, I think that the most important part was always the beginning, when no one could tell what the future was about, but yet they gave me room to operate. Yes. Yeah, it's just the work. There's no chances anywhere. I guess everyone has to work. I sometimes think the idea of hard work is overrated, and it somehow doesn't give people that, because chance is also important. Because when I was finishing school, when I was my MFA, just before finishing, I had the opportunity. They were doing this big exhibition in London at the Saatchi Gallery, and of course we had read about the Saatchi Gallery and Charles Saatchi and how they contributed to contemporary art in the early 20th century. And late 21st century and late 20th century. And we were thinking, oh, will we ever be part of this discourse? And then just when I was finishing school, there was a big exhibition which I was invited to. And beyond that, I was invited to Venice. And then it really opened up this way, Of course, I was doing work that seemed to have potential within the period that allowed me to go in there. But imagine if also that did not have happened. Maybe it would have been a different narrative now. So for me, I think that it's important that as artists, first and foremost, we have to put a lot of sacrifices into the craft and into the work. Then when chances or opportunities come along, I think then now it also makes things a lot more easier and smoother. Yeah, I don't have any goals in life. I just live and I work. I don't have expectations, I just live and I work. I try at every point in time to do the best that I think that I can do and offer. And I don't make compromises on that. If I can produce something or do something, make a gesture or an action, and I think that it is not right within me or I don't feel good about it, I will not do it. But if I do it, I'll also make sure that I go all the way out. And that's how I've lived my life. If I do exhibitions, I think of the exhibitions in relation to other spaces. If I produce in other spaces or other audiences, I think that how is that going to inspire other spaces? So I'm always thinking about one thing in relationship to the other. And I think that there is only so much that we can do. So we just have to keep doing it. We never really find a place of conclusion because we are dealing with a world which is also constantly evolving. So how do we evolve with that concept? And how also do we evolve the people that we are somehow centered within? Yeah. Thank you.